Farmington Hills, I would like to call our July 8th, 2024 City Council meeting to order. We begin sessions with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have a team from DTE here to give us a presentation this evening, and they will lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and we look forward to hearing from you in a few minutes. Okay, roll call, please.
Council members Aldred.
Here.
Olaware.
Here.
Bridges.
Here.
Bruce.
Here.
Dwyer.
Here.
Knoll.
Here.
And Mayor Rich.
Here.
Thank you.
Next item, item 1, approval of the regular session meeting agenda. Is there a motion? Ms. Knoll?
Yes, I would move to approve the agenda with an added item, 5A, for consideration of city attorney recommendations, case of Glenn versus Farmington Hills.
Approved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. This is a regular vote. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Carries. Item 2, proclamation recognizing July 2024 as National Parks and Recreation Month. This will be read by Councilmember Aldred, who I believe is the liaison for the Parks and Rec Commission, and then accepted by Ellen Schneckel.
That is correct. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, proclamation for National Parks and Recreation Month, July 2024. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout our state and country, including in Farmington Hills. And whereas the City of Farmington Hills Special Services Department is vitally important to establishing and maintaining our quality of life, ensuring the health of our citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of the entire community and region. And whereas parks and recreation programs are shown to increase the community's property values, expand the local tax base, increase tourism, attract and retain businesses, and reduce crime. And whereas the programs that are created and managed by the city's Special Services Department that take place at the Hawk and numerous other facilities and parks throughout the city positively impact the physical, mental, and emotional health of everyone who participates, helping to build an active community. And whereas the city's parks and natural recreation areas enhance the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and enjoy the outdoors. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Teresa Rich, Mayor of the City of Farmington Hills, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim July 2024 as National Parks and Recreation Month and encourage all citizens to pursue enjoyment of the outdoors through taking part in one of the Special Services Department's many wonderful programs, including cultural arts, golf, archery, aquatics, ice skating, fishing, senior activities, nature center classes, athletics, special events, and more.
Thank you. And Director Schneckel.
Good evening. My name is Ellen Schnackel. I'm the Director of Special Services for the City of Farmington Hills. Thank you for proclaiming July as National Parks and Recreation Month. This year's Parks and Recreation theme, Where You Belong, celebrates the many ways parks and recreation professionals across the country foster a sense of belonging in their communities by providing welcoming, inclusive programs, essential services for all ages and abilities, and safe, accessible spaces to build meaningful connections. Therefore, we encourage everyone here tonight and everyone watching at home to get outside and play. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, announcements, presentations from city boards, commissions, and public officials. And this evening, we are going to receive a presentation from our representatives from DTE.
All right, good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council. Thank you for having me, my colleagues from DT here tonight. I have a couple of slides that are going to provide some perspective around how we serve the customers of Farmington Hills, how reliability performance has been in recent years, and what our path forward looks like from an investment strategy standpoint. So in Farmington Hills, we have 50,000 customers that we serve. These are both what I'll call residential customers as well as business customers inside of the city footprint. Within how we serve these customers, we have what we call substation areas. And these substations they convert electricity down to usable levels for residents and businesses, and they're represented here by the colored polygons on the map. In total, there are 10 distinct substations and their corresponding circuits that provide power for the residents and businesses here in Farmington Hills. In recent years, we have invested significantly in the city, namely to the tune of around $50 million over the past 5 years. 50% of that has been in the tree trimming space. The other 50% has been very pragmatic, specific investments in overhead infrastructure as well as underground infrastructure serving a lot of the neighborhoods here in the city. So the question is, how has the reliability performance been for Farmington Hills? Across the industry, from a utilities standpoint, there are a series of metrics that are consistently used across the country. Measured around frequency of outages, so in other words, of the 50,000 customers we serve in Farmington Hills, how many times do they on average see an outage or experience an outage over the course of a year? That's the left chart up there. So a safety of 1 means that on average, the 50,000 customers have seen 1 outage over that particular calendar year. 2021 was a rough year. A lot of significant storms during that year. You see the number spike. Due to some of the investments that we've been making, that number is coming down to the level that we expect it to be. And as we invest more, that number will decline further in forward-looking years. It should be noted that the 2024 figure that you see in that chart is a year-to-date figure. So that's through July 1st. If you normalize that over the course of a full calendar year, that number would look like 0.8, assuming the second half of the year mirrors what we experienced in the first half of the year. The middle chart is around duration. So when a customer sees an outage, how long on average are they out of power for? What this chart shows is it's really a function of the severity of the weather that the city experiences. Earlier, 18, 19, 20 storms did not necessarily hit this particular geographic area. Durations were relatively short. Over the past couple of years, we've definitely seen the volume as well as the intensity of these storms hit. And as you can see, some of the duration figures here have moved a little bit upward. Most recently, back on June 19th, this area was hit relatively hard by severe weather. 80% of the 2024 duration figure is tied to that particular event alone. And then the right-hand side is the number of minutes that customers are out of power for the year. So it's really the product of the left and the center column gets you to that right column there. So last year, the average customer had about 1,100 minutes without power, which means that they had around 99% of the year they had power when they needed it. The future is exciting at DTE, in particular how we plan to invest our funds in the distribution business. Right now, our plans are we're going to invest around $9 billion over the next 5 years. And we have broken that investment program down across 4 very distinct pillars, as we call them. The pillar on the left is really around technology and automation. We are going to deploy thousands of devices up on our grid that will allow us to more quickly identify where damage is at on the grid. But then through the pressing of a series of buttons from our downtown headquarters, we can reroute power to energize customers much quicker than we can without that type of technology. Farmington Hills will have about 10% of its grid automated by the end of this year, and we will continue to automate more and more of it in the coming years. The second pillar is about hardening the grid. As we all experience, as we see down south right today with Hurricane Beryl. Climate change is upon us. The severity of storms is going to remain intensified, if not intensify further in coming years. So how do we make the grid more resilient to withstand increased wind, increased ice, that type of weather event? That's what the second pillar is about. It's about replacing our infrastructure, whether it's poles, whether it's the cross arms at the top of a pole, with larger, beefier, more sturdy, more resilient hardware that will help withstand the climbing impacts of climate change. In spite of our best efforts to automate and harden the grid, we do recognize that there are areas of the grid that we simply have to rebuild, and that comprises the third pillar on the slide here. Some of these areas will be in Farmington Hills. This is going to be a multi-year, maybe even upwards of a decade-plus investment program, but this will include installing brand new substations, rebuilding the entire circuit that the substations feed to support our customers better. And then the far right pillar, it's really about the fundamentals of our business. We recognize that trees still cause 50% of the minutes that our customers are out of power. Now that the city of Farmington Hills is on a 5-year cycle, we are going to maintain the city on that cycle for the foreseeable future. That will help drive additional improvements in the reliability performance for the city. So I'm excited. These programs here will entail about $50 million additional funding in the city over the next 5 years, and we fully expect that investment profile will help drive additional value in terms of reliability performance. So I appreciate your time this evening, and that will conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions from council? And just for the public, DTE spent an hour with us during our study session this evening as well, where we went into quite a bit of detail on this, but I'm sure that some of the questions we asked, we want to make sure that our residents hear as well. So we apologize to our DTE partners for repetition, but get a second chance at the answers too. So who on council would like to start? Okay, I saw Mr. Aldred and Mr. Bridges, the Mayor Pro Tem. Okay.
All right, yeah, thank you. Yeah, and again, as the mayor said, I appreciate you coming in and giving us the opportunity to discuss in the study session. So some of these things we've already looked at and discussed, but it is helpful considering the number of comments that we have from the community, just to reiterate some of these things. And just to summarize, my view is that obviously we appreciate the hard work that you do to restoring power, but I would like to see us do a better job of providing information to track how we're doing with reliability. So you're providing some numbers tonight, which is great. I think it's really important that we identify where are those trouble spots in the city, where we are below, where we should be in terms of reliability. And it's great that tree trimming is half the problem, but that means half the problem isn't trees. That means there's other things that we need to do, like some of these other things you've outlined. And I think we're all on the same page here. We all want to provide more reliable power for our residents. And so again, my ask is that we continue to have better data on the reliability so that we can see where are the problem areas, making sure we're addressing those. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I just wanted to say thank you for your presentation at study session, very exhaustive presentation at the study session. Council asked a lot of tough questions, and you provided some answers. Appreciate your reliability plan you put forward, the 4 pillars, and we just want to see that continue to push for your plan to be implemented and follow through, because the reliability of electric power is critical for our residents and our businesses. And the mayor mentioned earlier regarding the senior citizen population of Farmington Hill is growing, so it's critical that they have power on a consistent, reliable basis. And we appreciate the plan you put forward, but we're going to continue to monitor to ensure that you meet the objectives of your plan and that reliability in Farmington Hills does continue to improve. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Earl.
Yeah, thank you again for coming in. On June 19th, the storm that we had, a significant section of the east end of Farmington Hills was without power. Many of those residents were without power for 48 72 hours, some over 72 hours. Could you just, you took us through this presentation earlier, as was mentioned, in regard to your response to that storm, but just for our residents, could you give just a very brief summary of your response to that storm and maybe why it took as long as it did to restore power in some cases?
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity to share what happened during that event. So 9:30 at night, June 19th, rather kind of a surprise storm hit our area. National Weather Service was not predicting this. There were some pop-up storms, but there was a phenomenon called a downburst that hit this geographic area and a little bit to the east. Winds were in excess of 60, 65 miles an hour. And as you can imagine, when that type of wind speed occurs, you're going to have some rather severe damage, and that's exactly what we saw. The damage on the eastern part here, as well as through Beverly Hills, Southfield, Berkeley, those areas, was indicative of a storm that would normally be a couple 100,000 customers in total size, but this was a much smaller storm, but just much more impactful in a very localized area. We called in 200 crews from outside the state of Michigan to help us. They augmented our 2,000 plus resources that we have on the property every single day of the week, whether they're overhead linemen, underground splicers, office staff, tree trimmers, every trade you can imagine. We recognized quickly we did not have the resources here to deal with the magnitude of damage that we saw. Upon reflection, we didn't bring enough in. Instead of the 200 that we brought in, bringing 250 in would have helped us resolve all of these customer outages within 48 hours. We did our best attempt to assess the magnitude of the damage within a 6 to 8 hour window. Obviously, we weren't able to get the full picture of what that damage looked like, which led to about 2,000 customers who were impacted on that Wednesday night. They lasted, their restoration efforts lasted until Saturday. So we did miss our mark in terms of having 100% of our customers restored within 48 hours, which would have been that Friday night. But by no means was it due to lack of grit and focus here. It was really just aligning the resources with the magnitude of the damage that was the missed opportunity for us. We recognize where we did fall short. We're fine-tuning our processes even further so that when the next event like that occurs, we won't be up here again having the same type of conversation. That's our goal.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. You know, thank you. I have seen some progress, but not as much as I would have liked to have seen over the years. One of the largest complaints that I hear from the residents here in Farmington Hills is the outages that occurs during a storm or non-storm event. You had mentioned that we're doing much better than the last time, and I know that these storm events are occurring more frequently than ever before. And I'd ask in our study session, you know, how does DTE plan to deal with those more frequent outages, considering the fact that many residents now feel that they have to have a generator in order to be assured that they're going to have electricity, which can be a very expensive outlay of money in order to assure that, you know, they have the power that they need. Going a little bit further than that, I know that there is this whole push in Michigan with the automotive industry to bring in electrical vehicles, and our infrastructure currently can't even sustain the normal electrical power requirements for the average residential homeowner. So what do you see going forward in the future that DTE is going to have to explore in order to make it possible that the economic engine here in Southeast Michigan can deal with the electrical vehicles that they plan by, I think it's 2035, that they're going to, you know, really have a large push for that?
Yeah, there's a number of questions within the question.
Yes.
Let me go back to the slide we have here. So we recognize that we have to do better for our customers. Over the past couple of months, we've come out with a vision of reducing the frequency of our outages by 30% over the next 5 years, and then reducing the number of minutes customers are out of power by 50% over the next 5 years. Because we recognize that electricity is a very desired product for everybody, right? Whether it's my children, my family, everyone here, families, friends, everyone is using electricity in a very different way than I used it as a young child growing up. So we recognize the importance of having electricity there when you need it. That's exactly why we are investing $9 billion over the next 5 years to deliver upon the expectations of our customers. To answer your second question about electric vehicles, right? So we have an army of engineers that are constantly monitoring the grid, and we know exactly where electric vehicles are being deployed across our entire service territory. And we can use that information to understand the different loading on the transformers or on the wires in the local area. And we can get ahead of it by understanding if we are coming up to a capacity limitation in a particular area because of electric vehicles, we can proactively get out there and replace equipment so that we don't have issues out there in terms of supplying reliable power to our customers. But before you do that, you need to do what's up here on the page first. You need to ensure customers don't experience outages, but when they do, that you get them restored as quickly as you possibly can. But you have to augment that with some really in-depth engineering to understand where these electric vehicles are going inside of the service territory.
Okay. Yeah, and one final question, nationwide, our electrical rates, what the average homeowner pays monthly for their electrical bills, how do we compare with the surrounding states, Ohio, Indiana, maybe perhaps Wisconsin, in the rating classification?
Yeah, we are so the way that we look at it is the impact to the pocketbook of the average customer. So a rate is not what we feel the appropriate way to look at it. We look at a bill, what the average bill looks like for a customer. A residential customer, our bills are lower than the industry median. So if you look at all the utilities across the country, in all the states where utilities are operating, you looked at where we are lower than the median bill for residential customers. We are very, very closely monitoring the impact to affordability from these investments that we're making. We have goals to where our rates are not going to increase at a rate higher than inflation. They haven't increased at anything higher than the rate of inflation for the past 5-10 years. That's something that we look at very closely when we decide that we need to make investments in an area, is the affordability impact to our customers at the same time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? So I have a couple. I appreciate this, and as I said in the study session, I appreciate the statistic that that people experience on average 1.6 outages a year in 2023. I would love to see where the very fortunate neighborhoods are, because my neighborhood up in the northwest section of the city and my son's residence in the southeast section of the city have definitely not been as blessed. So our outages are many more than that. And so I believe you that your numbers are audited, but oof, it was kind of hard to swallow. I would like to hear a little bit about, in the study session, Mr. Maloney mentioned a new web-based tool for understanding reliability and so on. Could you go into that a little bit, or maybe ask Mr. Maloney to do, somebody from the team?
Yeah, I'll do it since I'm up here. Are you good?
Okay, thank you, Brian.
So I guess it was over the past month, maybe 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, we released a tool that you can access from the DTE website. That's a power improvement map, where you can type in your address, right, 123 Main Street, and this tool will be able to provide you with recent reliability performance. But then more importantly, there you can see what work is in the plan for your particular geographic area. So that way you as a resident, you as a business, you have an understanding of where our heads are at as to where we're going to be spending some of our investment dollars. So whether it's tree trimming, whether it's pole replacements, whether it's automation, those types of details are all provided through that tool. And you can access it right from the DTE website.
I think that'll be wonderfully helpful.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And then the Mayor Pro Tem mentioned the concern that I brought up in the study session about our aging population. We have many more people who are reliant on durable medical equipment, oxygen, to continue living. And so when the power goes out, that's a problem. So can you address a little bit, if you're a resident in our city who has that sort of concern, what should they be doing?
So on a day like today, where there's just regular weather, we're going to restore outages on average within 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours. So that's a pretty quick response. Hopefully that doesn't lead to significant issues with that customer base. The challenge is when you have a big storm like we experienced a few weeks ago, when customers are out of power for days on end, that becomes a very real concern. During that particular event, we have identification in our systems of what we consider vulnerable customers. Whether they're seniors, whether they are on oxygen equipment, they have some special designation in our system. And we made outreach calls to 3,800 vulnerable customers during that particular storm.
In Farmington Hills, or?
That would be the area. I don't know
All
the number
DTE.
for Farmington Hills, but we made 3,800 calls to customers. In some cases, customers who had extended duration, we call them again. And when we call them, the vulnerable customers, we're asking them, do they want a generator?
Okay.
Right, so there's generators that we have in our portfolio of equipment that we can go deploy on a one-off basis. So if you do have critical medical equipment at your home and you need to have power, we can deploy a generator accordingly. But we got to the point where we were concerned, given the heat during the storm, and we were on day 2, day 3, we called customers and offered hotel rooms at our expense.
Thank you. And if you're a resident and you don't know that you're on the vulnerable customer list, or you want to make sure, and perhaps you think you're not,
Yep.
where should they turn?
Yeah, the best way to do it is to call just our regular DT number downtown, and you'll talk to a customer service agent, and I think it's just a verification call as to how they're coded in our system.
Thank you very much. We did have one resident who put forward a card. So Brian, you may step down for at least a moment. PG wanted to make comments on the DTE presentation. And you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Council. Good evening to the City Manager, Assistant City Manager, and all the Council. I want to applaud you guys for doing a really good job in terms of your response time, cutting down the trees, but I think that more attention needs to be put on the infrastructure. You addressed the issue in the COW, or in the study session, about older residents and the use of medical equipment and having electricity. But what I want to ask you about, and see if you can comment on, all these things that we're doing for clean energy and air. What is your game plan for clean energy and air? And my council buddy over there and I, we were just talking, does remote monitoring mean that you're going to do this monitoring with the drone? And have you anticipated what is purported to use more electricity with this AI stuff that's coming out? And how do you plan on addressing that? And thank you, Council, for the opportunity.
Thank you. I'm sure we have more than one resident with that same question, so if you wouldn't mind, please.
So I think there were a few questions embedded in that. So let me talk about the clean energy space. So equally important in terms of the grid, we are completely transforming how we generate electricity. We recognize that in our mind, climate change is real, and it's ever more impactful to our residents. So we want to be what we call a leader in the industry as it relates to setting out very clear aspirations from a clean energy standpoint. We were one of the first utilities in the country back in 2019 to communicate out that we do have a decarbonization plan, and we have tensioned that numerous times since then. So right now, we have committed that we will be out of the coal business by no later than 2032. So we're now 8 years away, so that will be the last 2 units at the Monroe Power Plant down in Monroe. That will completely take us out of the coal business. What we're doing to replace all that generation from coal is we are building out a lot of wind and a lot of solar and a lot of batteries. Right, clean energy, clean generation. The challenge, as we all know, with that type of technology is the fact it's intermittent, meaning the sun's not always shining, the wind is not always blowing. So how do you augment that technology with resources that you can bring online very quickly? So what that is, it's nuclear. We have a very robust nuclear plant down near the Ohio border that's been in operation for decades. That will be part of our generation fleet for years to come. We just built the cleanest natural gas plant in the country a couple of years ago. That's out in East China Township. And we'll probably be adding potentially additional gas generation, but it's clean. Because what you're doing is you're taking those emissions and you're essentially stripping them of all the bad things that come out. So that's how we're going to be what I'll call cleaning up our generation to do our part to address climate change in the coming years.
Thank you. We
Yep.
appreciate the response, and thank you to our DTE team for coming out. It was really eye-opening for all of us. We appreciate the continued partnership, and we look forward to seeing you again before the end of the year. Okay, with that, we will move on to correspondence. Any members of council wish to discuss any correspondence that they have received? Okay, I would like to acknowledge that many of us received in excess of 2,000 emails today regarding a concern about a protest that may be planned in part of the city later in the week, and that we would like to acknowledge that that has been received, and that our number one is concern, well, we have two concerns. One is to protect the freedom of speech and to also make sure that all of our residents are safe. And so those continue to be our concerns going forward. This then takes us to the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered routine, administrative, or non-controversial by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the items may be removed from the consent agenda for consideration. These are items 6 through 10. We have a resident who would like to speak on consent agenda items 6 and 7.
New business.
I'm sorry. That we're on the consent agenda.
Number five, new businesses.
New businesses, yes.
And consent agenda is number 6. I don't know why it's like that, but that's how it's in there.
Oh, okay.
Remember?
Yep, all right.
Typically, that's new business occur after consent agenda. I don't know why it's there.
That is, yeah, the agenda is printed such that it says consent agenda after correspondence.
You see that, but I don't know why it's like that. You know what I'm saying?
I'm looking at the
Oh,
published
here's
agenda.
4. All right, here's 4. Yeah, okay. Mayor, I'm in error. You're
Okay.
correct. I'm sorry.
It very often is an issue between my chair and the laptop, so I am with you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. So, council, before we continue, with this request for a comment on items 6 and 7, what's the protocol for us to make sure this resident is able to speak?
Sure, yes. A few things, and we do have some amended rules, so, but the rules have always provided for residents to speak during public comments, during that section of the meeting, during agenda items, regular agenda items, and during public hearings. And that's what's provided for in the council meeting rules. It does not provide for public comment during consent agenda items. But as you know from your rules, if a citizen requests that an item on the consent agenda be removed, city council may remove it. You do not have to remove it. It's in your discretion. So I would advise that there would need to be a motion to remove one or all of those consent agenda items, seconded and approved by a majority vote in order for those to be removed from the consent agenda and put onto the regular agenda for discussion. And if you do that, then the ability to speak during a regular agenda item would apply. If you
Okay.
have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I hope that was clear. I know it was a lot. But
It's a lot. Okay, so, council, what's your pleasure?
I'm sorry, I can't hear. If you, it's all good.
So basically, you're requesting a motion to move items 6 and 7 from the consent agenda on the agenda under new business. Is that correct?
I am offering that as an option.
Okay.
Because we have a resident
that's
who'd
fine.
like to
Yeah,
speak.
I can make that motion then.
Then thank you very much.
Okay, so I will make the motion to move items 6 and 7 from the consent agenda and move them on to the regular agenda for tonight's meeting under new business. So they would then be items, well, based on the order, it would be items 6 and 7, following 5A under new business.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. This would it be a roll call, Madam Clerk?
I believe it's a regular vote.
Regular vote? Okay. Yes.
Discussion?
Yes,
Let me
discussion,
ask-
please.
Yes. Is that the only opportunity the person will have to make a comment, public comment on those two items? Is if we remove it from the consent agenda
Prior to voting.
prior to voting? Oh.
Okay, well then. So any other discussion? Okay, so, okay, then let's vote on this. All those in favor of moving items 6 and 7 from the consent agenda to new business following item 5A, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign.
Oppose.
Okay, we have a 6-1, the motion carries. Mr. Richard, I'm sorry, 6-2. 5-2.
5-2.
It's a 5-2. So, Mr. Richard, we will call you when it's time for this agenda item. Thank you very much.
Can I make a comment?
No, not at this time, sir. Thank you. Okay, so then consent agenda items 8 through 10 to be read by the Mayor Pro Tem, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 8, recommend approval of a special event permit for the ESCON Color Fest to be held on Saturday, July 27, 2024. Item 9, recommend approval of City Council study session meeting minutes of June 24, 2024. Item 10, recommend approval of City Council regular session meeting minutes of June 24, 2024.
Okay, is there a motion? Dr. Bruce,
I would move the consent agenda as read by the Mayor Pro Tem.
is there support?
Support.
And support, okay. Then this is a roll call vote.
Council members Aldred,
Yes.
Bulaware,
Yes?
Bridges,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Dwyer,
Yes.
Noel,
Yes.
Mayor Rich.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. This then takes us to council member comments and announcements. Any council member have something they would like to share? Okay. I would like to note that we have unfortunately had At least, we have had 3 motorcycle fatalities in our city so far this motorcycling season. And so I encourage those of us who are drivers to make sure we keep our eyes open for people who may be on motorcycles, as well as this season, we have increased pedestrians, we have increased people on bicycles. And so please keep your eyes out and let's help make sure that everybody returns home safely. Okay, then that takes us to city manager update.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Just a couple of quick things. We received a very nice thank you letter from the City of Livonia regarding our assistance during the tornado that they had last month. I'll be sharing that with Council in your weekly memo. Also wanted to bring Council up to date on the couple that came to the City Council meeting, last meeting in June regarding the Sci-Fi Hut on Farmington Road. We met with them in the field with Sci-Fi representatives and the underground contractor. We're doing our level best to resolve that concern.
Yes, Dr. Bruce.
Real quick question. Do you know when 11 Mile is going to open from construction?
I would say August to be safe.
My assistant says August,
Oh, okay.
before Labor Day.
All right.
It's getting there. We're very close.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We look forward to this. Okay, thank you. All right, that then takes us to unfinished business. Item 4 on the agenda, consideration of approval of the enactment of ordinance C7, 2024 to amend the city code of the City of Farmington Hills, Chapter 34 zoning chapter, to amend the zoning map, and a whole lot more that will be included in a motion, I am sure. Good evening, Charmaine.
Good evening. I don't have a presentation for this evening. This is the second reading for the rezoning request, going from RA4 and P1 to just RA4. The details of this were illustrated at our last meeting in June. If you have any questions on it, I'd be happy to go over it. I believe everyone on council was aware of it during the first reading.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, is there a motion? Mr. Aldred.
Yes, I move to approve the enactment of ordinance C7, 2024 to amend the city code of the City of Farmington Hills, Chapter 34 zoning chapter, to amend the zoning map and district boundaries established under Section 34.3.2 to rezone and reclassify the property located at parcel ID 22-23-26-480-046. Vacant property located at the northwest intersection of Middlebelt Road and Astor Avenue from RA4, one family residential district, and P1, the vehicular parking district, to RA4, one family residential district. Rezoning request 3-3-2024 and approval of summary for publication.
Okay, we have motion and support by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion by council? All right, this is a roll call vote.
Council members Noel,
Yes.
Dwyer,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Bridges,
Yes.
Bolaware,
Yes.
Aldred,
Yes.
Mayor Rich.
Yes. This takes us to item 5. We're now moving into new business. Consideration of approval of award for payment of diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting to Life's Journey in the approximate amount of $200,000. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. The Life's Journey proposal dated 7/27/21 was submitted to city officials, which outlined fees for facilitation of surveys and focus groups, data collection, consulting, and employee training. The total cost for the proposal was $264,400. The August 9, 2021 CMR indicated an approval amount of $65,000 annually for 3 years. Life's Journey's contract was signed by city officials and Life Journey's owner on 8/27/2021. During the 2021 through 2023, Life's Journey worked with city employees to obtain feedback on work culture and personal experiences through focus groups and surveys. To continue this work, in February 2023, a DEI director was hired. By October 2023, this data was aggregated and utilized to create customized training for city employees and in the development of the city's DEI strategic plan. The strategic plan is ready for implementation citywide during Q1 of fiscal year 24-25. To begin the implementation process, in May 2024, city staff participated in the, quote, "Respect in the Workplace," end quote, training. This training was customized for Farmington Hills employees to address focus group and survey results on topics such as how staff are treated, relationships between staff and leadership, and how respect may look different between various culture and ethnic groups and generations. To date, the city has expended $196,000 in the last 3 fiscal years. This amount encompasses costs related to the original scope of work, as well as previously approved out-of-scope work during 2021 and 2022. The after-the-fact request is for approximately $200,000 to complete the training outlined in Phase 3 of the proposal. The additional request is broken down into the following. To pay invoice number 325015 in your packet that was in your packet in the amount of $109,600 for training that has already been completed as previously described. Approximately $50,400 for continuing the implementation of the DEI strategic plan for, quote, "impacts of DEI," end quote, training. This training was to occur in June, but was postponed until we could discuss this effort with City Council this evening. This training will provide all staff with specifics on how the strategic plan was developed, how the initiatives outlined in the strategic plan impacts the city's DEI efforts, and what those impacts will mean for employees daily. $40,000 for creation of a procedural justice webinar for our city's police and fire department that also focuses on the impacts of D&I through a public safety lens. This webinar will be the property of the City of Farmington Hills, to which it can be utilized for future first responders within the City of Farmington Hills. To continue building a strong foundation for the city's DEI efforts, it is critical that all staff can effectively understand how they are affected by DEI, that DEI efforts have a broad spectrum of focus, including but not limited to gender, employee wellness, succession planning, cultural awareness, employee recruitment, hiring, retention, race, and work-life balance. Through these efforts, there is also a strong focus on ensuring that the city staff are representative of the diverse community that we service. This goal is accomplished through hiring efforts, cultural norm awareness, multi-language communication modalities, and knowledge of impactful resources for families. In view of the above, it is recommended that City Council authorize the city manager to approve an after-the-fact purchase order with Life's Journey in the approximate amount of $200,000 for completion of the DEI and employee development training as outlined in Phase 3 of the attached proposal. Thank you.
Okay. So what I would suggest is that we look at having a motion and then have discussion. Sound okay? Yes, go ahead.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to table this item. Table the approval of the award of payment for diversity, equality, and inclusion consulting to Life's Journey in the amount of about $200,000. I looked at the documents that were presented for our review to make a decision tonight.
Mr. Dwyer, so you've made a motion, now we'll see if there's a second, and at that point, we would have discussion.
Well, there's no discussion on a motion to table.
Oh, this is true. There is no discussion on a motion to table. So is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table this discussion. Per Robert's rules, we do not have discussion on a motion to table. Is this roll call or regular?
It's regular.
Regular vote, okay. All those in favor of tabling this agenda item, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Okay, so it would appear that we are tabling this agenda item.
Is this going to be a date certain? Are we bringing this back? Was that your intent?
I would like to have it taken back to the council in a study session.
Okay, we can bring to next study session. Okay, so is there a second on that? Because we just voted on tabling on general, so let's hold on
Mr.
here.
Dwyer, state what he wants to be discussed in the study session. You want more information? What does he want? What do you need at the study session? What are you asking for?
I'm asking for more information and discussion relative to the payment. I'm totally for the program itself. The training is necessary. There's just a lot of questions that has to be answered in my, that I have, and I'm sure some of the council members also have, and additional documentation that I'm going to be requesting.
Okay, so this is a motion to table until our next study session, which will be in August. And you supported?
I did.
Okay, so that's friendly amendment to the motion. Actually, no, Ms. Boulaware seconded.
Yeah, she did.
So will you continue with that friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay, all right, let's do a revote. Okay, all those in favor of tabling to the study session, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay, so we are tabling this agenda item to our August study session. Thank you. All right, very good. Then this takes us to item 5A, city attorney recommendation.
5A, I'd like to make a motion. I would like to make a motion to authorize the city attorney and city manager to proceed with the authority to negotiate a settlement of the case of Glenn versus Farmington Hills in the manner recommended and discussed in closed session previously.
Support?
Okay, we have a motion and support. Any discussion? Seeing none, then let's roll regular vote.
Regular vote.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Carries unanimously. This then takes us to item 6, recommended approval of award of contract for the police department boiler upgrade project to Goyette Mechanical in the amount of $250,000. We had Mr. Brian Richard, who would like to speak on this agenda item. Please come forward.
Brian Richard. I'm a resident of Farmington Hills. So I'm not sure what happened earlier. I guess I interpret this language that if a citizen wants to speak, then the item may be removed. It would seem to me that the comments would be made, then you would decide whether or not to remove it, but that's just the way I interpret that. All I wanted to say on these two items, I am a construction worker. I'm an electrician by trade, so I think this is great. I'm a huge fan of infrastructure, and I would like to see the city investing in things like this. I think that's all fantastic. As a former labor rep, all I wanted to ask council was, when making these decisions, particularly in construction and maintenance with construction contractors, and these happen to be union contractors that work under collective bargaining agreements. And again, I thank the city for selecting these contractors to do this work. But as many of you know, we work under collective bargaining agreements. And I wanted to know if the city took into consideration the contractors' records, and I'm talking all contractors in general's, compliance with the local unions that they're associated with in paying the wage and being up to date in the wage and benefit package. Sometimes what happens is guys get their checks and that's all good. Sometimes they fall into arrears with benefits. And before awarding these types of contracts, I don't know if that's something, it's my understanding that's not in the consideration, and I would recommend that it be part of the consideration. That was my only comment. It was certainly not to get these, hopefully there can be a motion to put these back on the agenda. And again, I apologize. My fault. I've never been to a city council meeting. So this was certainly not my intent to slow this down or get it disrupted. It just was this, I didn't even come here to talk about this, but I saw it and I'm familiar with this business. So those are my comments, and thank you to the mayor and the council.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Okay, so, go ahead. Yes.
If you'd like me, I can at least attempt to answer the question to some degree anyway. The city's contracts typically require compliance with law and ordinances and statutes and so forth. They typically do not call for compliance with private companies' contracts and collective bargaining agreements. Those are usually private matters between workers and their employer. If, however, it comes to light that the contractor is in violation of laws and so forth, that could become an issue under contracts that the city enters into. I think that's about as close as we get to it in that regard at the current time.
Okay.
I don't know if the city manager has anything to add to that, but from the legal side, that's what I can tell you.
So thank you for shedding some light for us, and thank you to our resident for bringing the question forward. And so we have this agenda item 6. Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that on item 6, move to approve the award of contract for the police department boiler upgrade project to Goyette Mechanical Company in the amount of $250,077. CMR 62468.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? This is a regular vote. Regular vote. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Carries unanimously. Next item, recommended approval of award of contract for Police Department Automatic Transfer Switch Replacement Project to Access Electrical LLC in the amount of $520,000. Is there a motion? Ms. Nall.
Yeah, I will make a motion to approve the award of contract for the Police Department Automatic Transfer Switch Replacement Project to Access Electric LLC in the amount of $520,000. And this is CMR 6-24-69.
Thank you. We have a motion and support. Any discussion? Okay, this is also a regular vote. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Carries unanimously. This then takes us to public, any additions to the agenda? I don't think we have, so I would appreciate receiving some blue cards. And it is now time for public comment. Stephen.
Oh, here we go.
Good evening.
Hi, my name's Stephen Lowick. I'm from Running Stream, 14 and Orchard. I think we can use some streets fix it in our place, in our complex. Oh yeah, we had a social a couple weeks ago. We're gonna have ice cream social the 20th. I mean, this landlord's trying to meet the tenants by having socials.
Well, thank you for letting us know, Stephen.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Stephen.
Next up, Henrietta Forshee, please. Good evening.
Oh, good evening, Mayor Rich and City Council members. Oops. I and my husband are residents of Farmington Hills, and I moved to Farmington Hills about 4 years ago, and I've been viewing and attending the meetings to learn more about the community. And I love the Farmington Hills general mission statement about to encourage a supportive environment where children, youth, and families are happy, healthy, educated, safe, and have the opportunity to reach their full potential. And I thank you for remaining steadfast in that local focus by not signing the ceasefire resolution or proclamation regarding Israel and Palestine or any other foreign countries in order to remain steadfast and faithful to this community and its needs, choosing to echo our founders in the E pluribus unum, out of many one, with your commitment of growing all of us into harmony. So I really appreciate this. I'm really happy to be in Farmington Hills, and it's just been an amazing transition that's been going on, and I'm just really wanting to let you know how grateful I am for all of you. So thank you.
Thank you. And we have followed by Mark Forshee.
Hi, I'm a resident of Farmington Hills also, and you made this announcement about the emails. I have two quick questions. Number one is, what is the protest about?
So, Mr. Forshee, during public comment, this is the opportunity for public to provide their input to council. It's not a dialogue.
Okay, when can I ask the two questions?
At the end of the meeting, we can talk in the hall.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Okay. This is your time to speak to us, and people will be available after the meeting to talk to you.
Okay, it's just that I have in the past talked and there was some interplay, so that's what I assumed we were doing. So, okay, but I'm just, if this protest is about the resolution, I don't like to say I'm involved in politics, but I'm involved in improving the area. That's what I'm trying to do. And I just, if you sign that or approve it once, there will be more, and there will be bigger demands, and we're going to get some anger and so on. So a lot of you were smart enough to know that don't open this door, just stand firm, and that's the smart thing to do. So I'm really hoping and praying you'll do that. And I talk to people, they haven't heard about this. They don't know what's going on. And no one the residents of Farmington Hills, and no one is supporting the resolution. So even though they aren't here, they're still in the city and they are not in favor of this. So I just wanted to get that across. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forshee. And PG is our last commenter for the evening. Oh, I'm sorry. Followed by Angie Smith. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening again. I just wanted to say, and I've said it before, that nothing good comes from violence. Oops. Are you ready? Okay. I've said it before, and I want to just say it again, that nothing good comes from violence. And I agree with the new resident here of 4 years that some things the city just should not be involved in. But irritation is an invitation to elevation. And elevation is nothing more than getting an education. You can agree to disagree, but to publicly try to demean someone because they disagree with your position and your thought, I think would make a person look colossally incompetent. So I want to thank the city for just being firm on what you believed in, all the council members. You know, but when you establish a rule in a meeting, you have to adhere to it. If you say no clapping, no outbursts, and it happens, you have to stick with what you say. And that's what I want to impress upon the council, and mainly to the mayor. If you establish a rule, stick with it, because they've shown this chambers, this city council, and this municipal complex no respect. I'm upset about the fact that we had a beautiful sofa out there and some art pieces, and I don't see them out there. And I know that they were moved just to ensure that they wouldn't be damaged. I appreciate that, but I want to see that artwork and that couch back out there, because it makes this area look really nice. When I made a comment about the restrooms, what I observed was exactly what I observed, and that was tissue on the floor, tissue on top of the counter, and it wasn't how the city's restrooms look throughout the day or the week, because I'm here a lot. And we have a very clean bathroom, a very clean municipal complex that's LEED certified, which means this city has thought of all of the things to make this an energy efficient complex. I'm talking about the uncleanliness during the meeting that I purport, my opinion, which is not right, wrong, or indifferent, what I observed in the bathroom. So if anyone is going to get up and quote me accurately, and when in doubt, ask education.
Thank you. And the last card I see is Angie Smith. Good evening.
Good evening. As a 27-year resident, I am appalled that after 2 meetings that I have attended, and not just the 2, but several, for the past 7 months, I live alone, and I'm a taxpayer. Despite of how I received my home, but I pay taxes. June 10th, we paid the fire department and the police $10,000 for a mistake that this community did not do. I FOIA'd the last meeting. We paid the police department $9,000 for a mistake that we did not do. The fire department, $950.53 for a mistake that we did not do. Tonight, the members of this community cannot see, but we have Farmington's finest, our police department here. 25 to 26 police officers in this building weekly. This has to stop. Our bathrooms have been clean. Misquoting anyone, I did not do. There has not been a tissue on the floor, and that's an insult to say that we don't have somebody to come in here and clean right. We do not have furniture, vending machines, or artwork here for a mistake that we did not do. I am tired of paying for a mistake that I did not do, because I paid a couple of years ago for a mistake that I did not do. I filled my paperwork out right when I ran for office. Someone else did not. And this community had to pay for that. That was another $10,000. I love beautiful clothes, shoes, nails, and eyelashes, and Louis Vuitton purses. That's where my money goes, not on mistakes that I didn't make. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, city attorney report, please.
Nothing to add outside of my report to you.
Thank you. And that concludes our business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Okay, we have motion and support. There is no discussion on a motion to adjourn. Good night, Farmington Hills. We'll see you in August.